Welcome to the Ricky Mathews Show, the show that every single day celebrates the amazing leaders, the amazing people of coastal Mississippi who have worked so hard and continue to work so hard to make this such a great place to live, work, and play. We're going to have the whole show today with FoFo Gilich, but before we go to the mayor, I want to share two quotes with you. One that I ran across from historian and philosopher. This is back in 1778 from Voltaire. But boy, does it apply today. And here's what he said. It's pretty basic. Common sense is not so common. Common sense is not so common. Boy, isn't that true? I mean, they thought that back then. Of course, you spend any time around the world today with media the way it is and social media the way it is, and, you know, people are so misled. They don't seem to think for themselves too often. I know that doesn't apply to our listeners, that's for sure, but we do bump into people from time to time who can really understand, or maybe they don't understand, that common sense is not so common anymore. And the other one is from Kate Spade. She was a fashion designer who died back in June of 2018. And here's what she said. I love this, actually. If you're as honest and fair as you can be, not only in business but in life, things will work out. If you're as honest and fair as you can be, not only in business but in life, things will work out. Boy, I tell you, I agree with that completely. Someone said to me early in my career, and I'll never forget it, this was especially important to me as a publisher, that, you know, everything in life is negotiable except your integrity. Think about it. Everything in life is negotiable except your integrity. If you go to every conversation, every opportunity that you have to communicate with people or negotiate something, if you know that your integrity is the most important thing you have, then you'll get through life pretty nicely. So I love that one. If you're as honest and fair as you can be, not only in business but in life, things will work out. Kate Spade. What good advice to start today's show with. So now let's turn the page and move over to my dear friend FoFo Gilich, the mayor of the city of Biloxi. And just first of all, say good morning. How you doing, FoFo?
I'm great, Ricky. Thank you. And it is a good morning. It's a good day. And you know, here we are, living the life, you know. So.
Well, listen, as you and I have discussed before, your team does an extremely good job of working on your website, doing the newsletter, working on social media. I don't have to go very far to really understand what the latest is in the city. And as I often say to you, there is no rest for the weary, but my goodness, there's just always a lot of news happening in the city because you guys don't let much dust settle, do you?
No, it's ongoing. It's nonstop. No question about that. And, you know, for news, it continues, and it's up to us to be, like you said, honest and fair, to explain what we know as we know it to any problems or situations. And of course, the Cecilia and John, and they do a tremendous job, you know, honestly and fairly. And I think that's one problem I don't have to worry about the right story getting out, and you know, touching the folks that first of all are impacted by whatever may happen. But you know, it's all about our safety and our you know, push to move forward and move Biloxi forward and continue its great history.
Hey, listen, I have a long list of things that you and I will cover today. And none of them will be a surprise to you at all. But as you sit there today, like, when you wake up this morning, what's the biggest thing on your mind right now?
Well, you know, we're trying to make a lot of things. You know, I talked a little bit about Kyle about you know, traffic and just making things as best we can from a transportation. We're trying to. My biggest priority right now is to get that Pops Ferry extension eventually from Highway 67 all the way to Highway 90. But this little part, which will improve drastically, you know, trying to come down Pops Ferry, cross, get to the beach some kind of way, which is going east or going west. But that's our biggest priority. Is that those plans are now detailed and they're designed and they're at MDOT's review stage right now. So we're hopefully by September, I think we'll have the bids on the street, and that $20 million project, which used to be $15 million, but it jumped $5 million almost overnight, based on CSX and some of these other things. We had closed street crossings in order to put this additional crossing, but that weighs heavy. That was to me, I'm a little bit Croatian intellect, and said we got to get it done. And now, now we're supposed to be in November or December, but here it is, and everything changed. But that consumes me. I need to deliver that. We've had some pretty successful responses to our plans. So like Rouse's, Rouse's coming in the old index. That's a big hit, big winner. We've got right down the street. Keystone Federal Credit Union moving their international headquarters, and I know that's a direct result of those improvements to their traffic. That's the heart, pretty much the highest at intersection between Pops Ferry and Paris Road, or probably the highest traffic count around. So we're really excited about that. And then the Coliseum will benefit from this, and everybody will benefit. And then possibly become a state road as a result of touching a major highway with another road. And a couple of bridges are involved there too.
Right, because that, as you and I have had these many conversations, the Pops Ferry Road Bridge, which is incredibly unique in that it is a major thoroughfare from I-10 to Highway 90, but is not covered by the federal government. It's a city bridge, which is really unfortunate. I get your strategy here as we continue to focus on connecting 67 and I-10 to Highway 90. Hopefully, eventually, we can get that bridge as a high priority for the state and for the federal government. I mean, that's the only way we're going to be able to get it done, isn't it?
That's right. I mean, these, when we started in 2000, I showed you the Biloxi Beach connector, so to speak, and in that long play back then, 2015, we had estimated that with a causeway and another high-rise bridge taking us from 67, we have a tremendous amount of right-of-way already down, Shriners Boulevard. So it's not a big stretch to do this. But that whole thing with two new bridges, $255 million. Now just one bridge is $200 million. And so, I mean, it's frustrating. It's not frustrating. It's part of life. Everything jumps. And, these last 3 years were, added tremendously to those challenges.
Well, well, I was just going to say, as you and I discussed when we talked about the bridge, we had a couple of really good full shows about the bridge. And I even had, I think they were called United Bridge Partners.
Right.
I think is that my memory serves me correct, and their approach to maybe doing a toll approach. Obviously the citizens didn't go for that, but at the end of the day, it was an important conversation about what it was going to take. The fact that it's interesting. What's adding cost to the city's need to build that bridge without the help from the state and federal government is the fact that you've got the Harrison County canal, industrial canal,
seaway,
seaway requiring the height to be at a certain level, and that adds a tremendous amount of cost to it. I think, again, common sense isn't so common anymore, but it just seems commonsensical that this should be a state road.
Well, it should be, and like I said, we have three bridges that we worry about. And the I-110 bridge is not, a new customer. Eventually, those things, and I think Fort Bayou, they put millions of dollars in just getting the mechanics done. Now, we have on the table with MDOT and requesting through transportation is the repairing, the rebuilding of that old mechanical, just to keep the bridge from to open and close, and that's important. That's do or die. I mean, there's no question about that. So we're again, that goes to repair the all hood drive. It's like a car when it starts leaking brake fluid and those kinds of things. We had $15 million on the table as requested just to fix that, so we don't have to worry about somebody coming out with a crowbar and trying to get it locked in place so you can drive over it. It's a nut cutting time, so to speak, with regard to getting those things done. But
that's beyond maintenance. That's a tactical here and now need.
Right.
Not just in terms of the amount of traffic that's going across that. And of course, as you know, I can walk out of my backyard and see when the bridge is stuck. And when the bridge is open, and the amount of traffic that's coming through there, barge traffic and other traffic, and then on top of that, you've got hurricane season approaching. And gosh, man, you got to have a reliable drawbridge. You don't want a drawbridge, but if you got to have a drawbridge, you got to be able to rely on it when it's as critical as Pops Ferry.
That's right. That's a definition. By definition, you got to be able to make that happen.
Hey, one other thing before we get off that thoroughfare connecting Pops Ferry to Highway 90. Boy, that's a long process of buying land and working through some negotiation with the Mississippi Gulf Coast Coliseum and Convention Center. We'll talk about where we are. I'm assuming all those issues are dealt with now, but when we get on the other side, we'll talk about that and the fact that we're moving forward rapidly to get that connection made. That's going to be really terrific. It's going to be good for everyone when that gets done. So. When we get back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Mayor FoFo Gilich. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show. I have my friend Mayor FoFo Gilich. And when we went to break, we're talking about connecting Pops Ferry Road to Highway 90. So that instead of when you get to Pass Road having to take the left or the right, usually people would take a left and go to Beauvoir and then go across the bridge and head to Highway 90. Now, the hope is that part of this overall project to connect Highway 90 to I-10 and 67 eventually, which would include some major bridge enhancements, to say the least, that will eventually be done. But the phase one of that project is to connect Pops Ferry to Highway 90. Mayor, when I was getting my degree in business, I took some classes, some real estate classes. My dad was a home builder. My mother was a real estate broker. So along the way, I got my real estate license. And I remember the guy that was teaching that class was a real estate appraiser, and he was working at that time for MDOT as they were buying land that would be the construction of I-110. And man, this was way early in the project. This is like many years. I can't remember. It might have been 10 plus years ahead of the actual building of I-110. And I remember just the thought that I had that, gosh, does it take a long time when you decide you're going to put a road in over there, when you start dealing with purchasing of that land and doing the appraisals and all the work that you have to do. It is a long process, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's surprising. Just more recently, now flip back a little bit. We got one piece of property left to acquire for that extension, and that's with the Coliseum. I think those details have been worked out, and what has been requested from the Coliseum in order to close, is some underpass and some of those connectivities that really, was the point of contention as far as those additions to. But anyway, that little chunk of real estate was millions of dollars. And when you look at what it took to get from actually Pops Ferry Road to Highway 90. But the one example in recent times was the acquisitions of property for the Keesler Main Gate. That was $6.2 million, half a mile, and that was that took years. And it's like building a submarine. You don't build a submarine overnight, even if you have the plans. So those are. You're right. It's extraordinary on what you have, and there are rules, especially when it comes to relocation and MDOT and those kinds of things that you got to have an equivalent. Until you've been through it, it seems easy, but it's not.
Well, I mean, listen, once again, for people who have not seen the new gate for Keesler, and you go there now, and it's beautiful. It's amazing. Everything turned out so wonderfully. But, boy, the process to get there, man, holy mackerel, the acquisitions that you talked about, that you're doing that gate, creating that new gate within the context of also doing all the infrastructure improvements in the streets and all of that, and the way you phase that in, the way you actually had to sort of wrestle control of that when you became mayor to say, we're going to take a different approach or we're never going to get finished.
That's right.
But it's easy now to forget about the pain that we had to go through to get there. But, man, it is a process, isn't it?
It is. I'm telling you, who is now head of the 2nd Air Force, she's Major two-star general, Major General Michelle Edmondson was the 81st, or Colonel Edmondson at the time, and I didn't know what MilCon was and all these other things that needed to, those things that needed to be done. But we got it done, from her. I think the inside was about 18 million, or the outside was about 18 million, and the inside was 17 million. And we had all kinds of things, but we were babes in the woods, so to speak. But this had been talked about for 20-something years, from the 70s. But we got it done, and we're all enjoying it. So, you go through war with someone, you can appreciate the accomplishment. So we kind of biting the bullet, so to speak, with that project. The extension was sort of an easier, more straightforward thing. But we've already spent $7 or $8 million there, and we expect about another $20 million to get the thing wrapped up. But you mentioned that interchange, that intersection between Pops Ferry and Pass Road. They're just that part of the improvements, even not crossing the railroad tracks and those things, is about $4 million. In other words, the approaches to that intersection has been redesigned and regenerated, and so it's going to help things tremendously. You don't have to do the things you need. When you're coming down Highway 90 and you need to go, across the bay, you got a direct route and not expect a bunch of, if you're coming from the west and trying to go north, make that left-hand turn, you could be way past Popeyes, backed up just to get in that one lane. So it's all be redesigned, and it'll rock and roll.
Hey, I don't think I ever mentioned this to you, but back, man, I can't remember when it was. It might have been in the late 1990s. I was actually on the connector committee for the city. I was just an employee at the Sun Herald and was asked to be on the committee. And we looked at all these different, approaches. And man, it was so contentious. I mean, people, when you get into looking at I think 4 or 5 different.
It went from, as I recall it went from version A. The final one was version H. Okay.
right.
That's the truth. And then when everybody, it's over, but that was H. And H actually was taking out 10, and doing the causeway and then wrapping it in, I think, as almost right alongside Hiller Park in the VA. That was the last version. But,
wow.
You got to make a move. It's we've got to start this move and kind of lock in, make the bet and hope you get the numbers. So.
Hey, listen, we're coming off of Memorial Weekend a week ago. You're looking at we had the Thunderbirds here. I spend every minute I can with people from the military community here in coastal Mississippi, because they have made such a mark. If you think about, we mentioned Keesler, the relationship that the city has with Keesler. I go back to the base closure committees, these numerous rounds of base closure committee work that we had to deal with. Yeah, BRAC. And the reality that our relationship with that base and how focused we are on encroachment, how focused we are on keeping the communications open. Man, if you reflect on where the base is today, how critical they are as a training entity for the Air Force, in fact, for the military in general, and the long-standing relationship the base and its leadership has had with the city, it's probably never been better than it is at this moment. Would you say?
Great. It's great, and I can tell you, just from a mayor and a tourism, if you can imagine back, how many people have come through since 1941, been stationed or were born on Keesler or part of the Keesler Biloxi situation. That's an economy in itself. If I just mark it and come back and visit where you are, visit the old days and see what it is now. But there's a whole section about 4.2 million visitors a year come to me and say, "Oh yeah, I was Keesler here. I was Keesler there." People. I don't care where you are. Oh, yeah, I remember Keesler. I'm Biloxi and Keesler, and that's the tremendous thing. I think, especially the folks who are in charge of 2nd Air Force and 81st, the 403rd, it's just a tremendous relationship. General Edmondson is just a buddy and a great family, and when you think of Biloxi, you need to think of Keesler. When you think of Keesler, you think of Biloxi, and it's just move forward. But that Thunderbird and those events just really just show you how many times we've had 5 air shows. Okay. Oh no, yeah. Thunderbirds have been back 3-4 times in like 5 years. Okay.
Yeah.
And Blue Angels once too. So that's unheard of. That's what the commander of the Thunderbirds said, that we never do this. We never come to a place where Air Force Base is. I mean, literally, they go to small towns and that's all the time, but it's unheard of to see that, they've been here that many times in that few of years. So, but it was tremendous show.
Hey, listen, when the year Katrina hit, there was supposed to be an air show. And of course, we didn't have it, but I had already jumped through all the hoops with my corporate, as president and publisher of the Sun Herald. I was a president of a subsidiary of Knight Ridder, so I had to get board approval to do this. But I had signed all the paperwork and was ready to jump with the Golden Knights.
Really?
Yes, I was all in on jumping with the Golden Knights. And as we approached it, I was getting more nervous about it. So, of course, Katrina hits and we go off into another place, right. Mentally, physically, and otherwise. But at some point, I came, I woke up and realized, oh wow, we didn't have an air show this year. Katrina. If there's any good thing that Katrina did, it saved me from jumping with the Golden Knights, because I needed my head examined to do that.
You've been the only one still in the plane. In other words, everybody else with the jump, you could.
Well, it's funny because on social media we see these pictures all the time of people who get paired up with paratroopers or whatever, and they get, they open the door and they're about ready to jump out, and they start screaming like a child, please don't. They have to kind of force them out, and they do their thing. But anyway, hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll talk about spring break and the really good job the city did to just immediately respond to what's necessary to keep everyone safe. We'll see you back on the other side. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show. I'm my friend, the mayor of the city of Biloxi, FoFo Gilich, and we were chatting during the break that we enjoy visiting on this show. We ought to actually have a Ricky and FoFo show at some point. And, he made the point that we ought to probably do a show from the Visitor Center in Biloxi and maybe invite Mayor Billy Hughes to join us, talk about a lot of things, a lot of conversations they're having about how to push the coast forward in a positive way. But hey, listen, speaking of pushing the coast forward in a positive way, you and I had a show right after the spring break situation where a patrolman was shot, others unfortunately killed, people injured. Man, we just can't have that in the future. We're known as a safe place. And what I've said on the show many times is that in the wake of that, I think the city council meeting that happened the very next week after the spring break activities was one of the most productive that I've seen, because you came loaded to bear. You spoke very specific to the issue. Your police chief had already been in contact. In fact, he was contacted by the police chief from Miami, and he had talked to others as well. He was doing his real homework around best practices. I came from Alabama, had responsibilities for newspapers in Florida. I knew the kind of efforts underway in both Orange Beach and Gulf Shores and other communities across Florida to deal with their spring break situation, what had happened in Miami as well. But you had each of the council people had their specific takes on it. So the reality was it was democracy in action. You guys went back to the drawing board. You did your homework. You came back again and have proposed a series of measures. And you did not let much grass grow on the decisions that needed to be made, did you, FoFo?
No, you can't, because April, again, spring break time will be here before you know it. And you've got to have, all the T's crossed and the I's dotted. And there's about 6 ordinances that, have been laid down with the workshops and those things to go. And to sort of calm, we've got a number of events that any kind of, I think Panama City and some of these other folks have one event per year. We've got more events than you could possibly think of, and you got the law to apply equally to all of those events. The goal is, keep people safe. our duty is to the citizens and our visitors to keep them safe and be enjoyable. We have a little bit of complicated, almost like New Orleans, but we got some things. We have Mardi Gras, we have cruising, we have spring break, and we have a number of events that our PD and our fire department and that we have to do the job. And, we're a finite number of folks where you have to be prepared for all kinds of things. I think 30 or 40,000, when you look at it, that, were part of the spring break event. And we're hopeful that the law will give us what we need to do to curtail those few that want to make this thing a terrible event. And they did. The loss of life that's, and the gunplay and the psyche today. How many people get killed every day on some things that why, with no reason why. And, I was young once, and I went to Lauderdale, and I went to Panama City and all of that. But, I don't know of anybody getting hurt bad. And it's happening day after day. So we have no choice but to get something down that's fair to everyone. But our circumstances are really, we're the only ones that have all of those events that have a law has to be applicable, and because otherwise it'll get overturned, and now you're back to square one again. So it's a challenge, but if it were easy, it wouldn't be fun. So we're going to work through this.
So I think it's one of the really important points to make is that the promoters that were part of that specific weekend. Some, maybe one, I don't even know. One was viable. The rest were hodgepodge and didn't follow rules, and it was really unorganized in that way, wasn't it?
It has been for, there's no one person or vendor or whatever you want to call it. There was no organization. It just popped up. There's a lot of, with today and the technology we have today. 300 could show up at your doorstep, and what are you going to do? I mean, we experienced that this past time, where you're as far as police to participants, that's 300 to 1. And every time you arrest one person, that takes 2 police officers out of the picture. Where do you go with it? We're limited. There are a finite number of spots at the Harrison County Jail. So I mean, we got some serious things to do. Should the event happen, you got to prepare for the worst, and that's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to, anticipate. It's like when you write code, you do 90% of the code that you write for 10% of the situations, and that's true. I mean, I literally, you lay 90% of the code that you write for 10% of the situations, and that's pretty much what we're going through now. It's
really a great analogy, I might add. I think one of the really important points, because this thing, we're not going to break it all down like we did before, but I think one of the really important points was that in order to prepare for an event, you need to first have a relationship with the promoters, like Cruising the Coast, for example. Woody Bailey and his team and the volunteers he brings together. They work year-round to coordinate all their activities with each of the cities and to make it an event that you can estimate what you're going to need in terms of police power and other needs for to support the event. It's again, planning and communication is the key. In the case of some events that we don't have that planning and communication, and even when you do, and it's hodgepodge like we experienced with the spring break, what you end up doing is having to bring officers in from other communities. And when you have them getting shot at, it's going to decrease your ability to be able to get those officers from other communities in the future. That is a serious concern, isn't it?
No, it's a tremendous concern. And Chief Miller has been very concerned. And let me tell you, he's a champ. He's the best. From when you have to run an organization or be part of an organization, you don't want to have to worry about a weak link. He's not the link. He's probably the strongest link. And so that's one thing I'm thankful for, and thankful for my whole crew. But that's in particular is the strength of the leadership, at every level in the PD and the fire department. So
yeah, I've had a series of terrific shows with Chief Miller, and I go back to the first one that I had with him when we really broke down all of the situation around Officer McKithen's death.
Oh, yeah.
And the way he handled it, the way he handled the community outreach afterwards, and the way he dealt with, city personnel and his team, and even today, I mean, the so much has been built into the police department as a result of that unfortunate murder. And watching his leadership during that, and then the other events since then, we're so lucky to have Chief Miller, aren't we?
Well, not only Chief Miller, but just the other day, we dedicated the post office. I think Congressman Palazzo and Congressman Ezell found that we're dedicating, the Main Street Post Office to Robert McKeith, and so that's the building will be named that. But this was just freshly, in our mind that this dedication. And the first thing, and I saw it because I can remember being there that night with not only Chief Miller and Chris and everyone else, but also Leonard Papania and Troy Peterson, and it still brings you almost to tears. Miller indicated, said we were a basket case, and we couldn't have done it without Leonard because he was chief of police from Gulfport and Sheriff Peterson. So I mean, that's one coast. You talk about one coast. I witnessed it, and it's still fresh in your mind.
There is no doubt. So What is D-Day on getting everything organized around how we're going to respond to future events?
Well, it'll be up to the weather, so to speak. That's how D-Day was day by day, in essence. But I guess our next workshop will be scheduled probably when it will be. But we'll have a number of interactions with the different organizations. And the thing I tried to say is that listen, we're going to do no harm. We've got to do we're going to do what needs to be done to control the situation. Now, unfortunately, when you think of spring breaks, you think of young folks and stuff like that. Well, and not a lot of those college folks that when we were young, are 30 and 40 years old and carry weapons. And that's the thing that it's too easy to get emotions take you somewhere, and just with the opportunities to get your mind sidetracked with use of alcohol or drugs and some of these other things. It's too easy for people to lose their lives, and that's the main thing. Nobody needs to lose their life, and nobody needs to get harmed for the rest of your life. One little, you fall off a bicycle the wrong way. Yeah, you could be dead, and you could be, in a way that you wouldn't want. You wouldn't even want to live. Just accidentally, but much less the malice that's comes around now.
There's also a very significant role that social media plays in allowing a unorganized event to go off.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that when we come back from break, when we continue our conversation with Mayor FoFo Gilich. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show. I have my friend Mayor FoFo Gilich, and when we went to break, we were talking about spring break and new ordinances and work that they're doing to put the right things in place that will hopefully keep people safe for not just spring break, but other events as well. And it's, as you pointed out, Mayor, it's complicated because you once you put these things in place, it's going to impact all events.
Right. And
you want to make sure that you don't overreact, but at the same time, you got to do what you got to do to keep people safe. The social media component. So you've got ordinances, then you've got a communication strategy that has to roll out of that. All of that can happen, and still, all it's going to take is one person to say, hey, let's gather in Biloxi on this date. And if that person has enough followers, suddenly you've got a problem. So, understanding how to react to the social media sphere is going to be a really important part of this plan. But, man, it's more complicated today than it used to be, isn't it?
It is, but literally, I don't know. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole right now because this happens every day. We've got a real-time crime center. And it's like the big city, like you see on TV, and everything's happening all the time. But we have 3 or 4 folks that sit on that internet and watching for things, child pornography, some of these other, fraud kinds of stuff, scams. And they're not smarter than us. Basically, look at the Russians. What do the Russians do? I mean, you look for certain keywords, spring break or Gulf Coast. You can drive your thinking down to say, okay, this guy's. I got an IP address for this guy right now. Okay, I'm not telling the truth. But then you can intercept those. And, it happened to me when I ran for mayor a couple of times that you point that inquiry, the next inquiry is going somewhere that they never intended. And that's, the Russians kind of situation. If you know what to look for, and we do now, like April 14th was 2024 is the date that they want to gather. Who? I don't know who. You see, a flyer or something that, but anyway, they're not smarter than us, and we can trap them. But that did happen. You talked about let's gather up, and it happened this past year, this past spring break. They gathered at a restaurant, pretty much had control of it. By the time we got there, those things were out of hand. But we've got to be, that's got to be way up on our radar on this is coming. And
this is when it's helpful to have a mayor who was a computer programmer. And, I came from digital media, so the point about the IP address is extremely important. So if you can capture those IP addresses, then regardless to what message they may be getting from this hodgepodge of promoters or this person who's not even a promoter saying, come to Biloxi, the ability for the city through digital media and through targeted media to be able to send messages back to them, which might say something like, don't come to Biloxi because this is what you're going to face when you get there. Or if you come to Biloxi, we'd love to have you. Just know when you get here, this is the rules. I mean, you're not going to be able to do this or you're not going to be able to do that, et cetera. I think you can have a really good strategy if you're smart about it.
Yeah. Well, we're going to try. I've got capable folks. I've seen what they do, and we can focus our efforts in making that safe, friendly, and beautiful. You come, but you're going to be safe, but you're not going to cause other people to worry about things, and we don't want our kids or our citizens or our visitors to feel unsafe and unwelcome.
Hey, listen, you and I had a good conversation about the panhandling issue in really coastal Mississippi, especially in Gulfport and Biloxi. You and the mayor of Gulfport, Billy Hughes, came together, and you recently did a fundraising activity with some great music. Tell me, how did that go?
Well, it was great. We raised some pretty good money at the ground zero. Lee Young and his group was all in, and just the people. I think we did from 6 to 9, about 20 songs, different groups. With Billy's group and Miles Sharp and Michaelette and a little bit of me and Rebecca Powers and I can't tell you. But anyway, it was 20 great songs, and we ad-libbed. They wanted us to do a couple more songs, so we did a little journey. But Billy did most of it. It's such a talent. He's such a great guy, and we just had a tremendous thing. The Mississippi Community Foundation is going to handle the money that's raised as far as allocation of vouchers and that sort of thing. So we raised money to fund this effort to be really impactful. For, I guess, first of all, to dry up the market for these so-called panhandlers. And panhandlers, they do this for a living. Some of them make $300 or $400 a day, and they show up nothing, and nothing in dire straits. You can't put panhandling as an occupation when you go try to get a loan, and that's what we want to. That's what we want to dry up. And the signage that's been, 40 or so in Biloxi and about 70 in Gulfport, but it's the first, movement to say, okay, there is a better way. And Billy was tremendous in doing the meetings and those sort of things we did over to Knight Foundation building, and it really kicked off June 1. So we're hopeful that we'll make an effort. And I talked with him the other day about version 2.0 of this thing. So I'm ready to go again. And I think you had your drumsticks out a little bit. So we'll accommodate a greater cast of celebs. We'll have a good time.
It would be fun. Hey, listen, one thing is for sure, the opportunity for us to work together on issues like that are really, really important. And this event, the Ground Zero Blues Club in Biloxi was a great venue. And anyway, listen, we're out of time for today, but we'll pick it up here the next time we're together. This has been Mayor FoFo Gilich of the city of Biloxi. Mayor, it's been great to catch up, my friend.
Thank you, Ricky. Tell your family I said hello. Give them all love. Thank you.
You will. I always do. Thank you, man. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, great. Thank y'all.